What is author marketing mastery through optimization, you ask? I'm going to tell you. It's the best way for us authors to make a living selling our books. Are you tired of hearing gurus tell you your book is only good enough to be a lead magnet for services? Are you tired of feeling like you have to be a slave to social media and then frustrated when the time you spend doesn't actually help you sell books? I was too, until I found Ammo. Ammo is the only program that reliably produces results, and it works for anyone. Is it hard work? You bet. Do you have to overcome some of your own prejudices to make Ammo work for you? Absolutely. But rather than being another program that rah-rah shish-goom-bahs tries to get you emotionally excited only to offer unclear methods, Ammo shows you how to design profitable ads step by step through a unique, highly tested and targeted formula. The founder, Steve Piper, is a data-loving, formula-driven author who escaped the kingdom of Amazon to build a platform for himself, where he sold directly to his readers and built a loyal following and millions of copies sold. With Ammo, you know who's reading your books, how to contact them, and what they want to read next. If you've always been frustrated with Amazon's wall of mystery of not knowing who's reading your books and losing 50 to 70% of your hard-earned money that you're making through sales, Ammo solves all of those problems by putting you in the driver's seat and showing you how to fulfill your books directly to your readership. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
Pardon the snowblower in the background. We just had a good old-fashioned winter storm earlier this week, and I thought it was pretty novel and fun until the kids had Monday off school and then Tuesday off school, and now they're on a late start today. That's the excuse for why this episode's dropping a few hours later than normal. When I was a kid, I think I experienced 5 total snow days my entire schooling career. I don't believe that's hyperbole. I can remember them because they were so infrequent. They were exciting, but they were infrequent. We had 10 snow days last year. Now we've had 2 this year. It's not even February. Whew. Life has changed. Things are a lot less hard nowadays. So they say. Things are also crazy. Or is that just the old man coming out in me? I'm not sure. Anyway, my guests on today's episode are the Scuttlebutt crew. Way back 2 years ago when I started this podcast, the Scuttlebutt crew invited me to be a guest on their podcast to talk about my writing, among other things. And we had a fun time. It's not a very focused show in terms of topicality, just conversations. Oftentimes with people from the military, but not always. And so when they came on this show, and the conversation you're about to listen to, it's not quite as focused on marketing as a lot of my shows are. There's still some gems in here, so make sure to listen up closely. I think Hermes, specifically, goes on a couple of really, I think, worthwhile rants about society, the things we're dealing with right now, and maybe how it affects the way that we get out there and market our books. But you are going to have to dig a little deeper in today's episode to find the marketing gems than you usually would. I'm going to be in Burlington, Iowa at QuadCon this Saturday, hawking my books live and in person. So one, if you're in the area, please think about stopping by. Get some signed copies of the books. I will sign also anything else that you want me to sign. Pieces of toilet paper, as long as they're not used. T-shirts, sunglasses, credit cards. You can actually give me a credit card if you want to, with a limit on it. I'll spend it judiciously. Or just come and say hello. Take a selfie with me. Post it online. You know, that kind of thing. Looking forward to making the trip out, although I'm a little concerned the streets will still be a bit, not great. So we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, things are plugging along. Selling more books into bookstores. Got a few authors set up for month 2 of the SPAC. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to previous episodes to kind of get yourself grounded. If you're an author who has a lot of reviews on Amazon, you want to be in bookstores and you're self-published, feel free to reach out to me. We'll see if we can get you in the lineup. All right. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the Scuttlebutt crew.
This is TRBM Ammo Edition. If you're a published author and want to make a living writing books and selling them to avid readers, you've come to the right place. There's simply no program that's more successful at driving readers towards the books you've written. So the only thing you have to worry about is writing a great book. And the system with Enamo takes care of the rest. Thanks for listening to this conversation.
Jody, what's the hat you got there? What team is that?
The Cubs.
Okay.
I am
okay.
a lifelong, diehard, multi-generational Cubs fan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, 2016 redeemed a lot of the pain, but it's still like
every team has this year,
Yes,
exactly. They can't all be the Braves and just be good all the time, but
it's pretty true. And I grew up, from my perspective, the Braves were my nemesis because that's when they were good and they had stolen Greg Maddux from us. So they added like insult to injury.
Well, I used to. So growing up on the West Coast, my team rightly should be Mariners. And
yes.
The Mariners just have always been. I mean, like since the '90s, they've been terrible. Like they had their time. Ken Griffey Jr. Like they had their star. And
what year did they win 116 though? They still have the record for the most wins in a single season, and it was 116, and then they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. What year was that?
I mean, that's what happened. That's kind of what happened to the Braves this year. They broke records all year, and then they the first round against the Phillies. Let me see.
I'm doing it as well, Mariners
baseball record.
I'm not doing it because I both already were.
Oh, I got it.
Thanks for the update. And then what we need to do too, while you guys are looking it up, let's do a quick, we'll call it an interlude to introduce yourself to all of the listeners. Your voices are pretty distinct, but for people who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about who you are. And also, I'd love for you to add in a bit about your anonymity. Two of you stay anonymous, one of you doesn't, but why that is, because I love what you do, and I want you to be able to promote the Scuttlebutt podcast here as well.
Ironically, the one that's not anonymous is the one of the two with his camera turned off.
Yeah.
My internet has been crying.
Theron, you want to take this one, man?
I could start off. I am the one of the three of us who are not anonymous. So my name is Theron, and that is actually my name. And I'm one of the three hosts of the Scuttlebutt podcast. We talk about all kinds of ridiculous stuff. It is kind of a military-based podcast, but that certainly doesn't hold us back from talking about anything and everything, which is how we met Jody.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I always give it to Theron because, like I said, he's the one who's good with being the social butterfly. Like he's good at public speaking and good with the social media and the handles and remembering what you're supposed to say. And I think Morpheus and I are more on the side of, I'm just here for a good time kind of a thing. But joking aside, we have to stay anonymous because of our, habit of having maybe too good of a good time sometimes. And, the loose lips sink ships, all that bullshit. We just like Theron said, like to talk about what's on our mind, gossip a little bit. What is the scuttlebutt? What is the tea to spill, so to speak, today? And we don't want to piss anybody who writes our evals off. So
we really don't even talk about a lot of spicy stuff, honestly.
We don't, but
every now and then we'll get into like some controversial topics, but it's always just kind of us like spitballing our opinions about it. Mm-hmm. We don't by and by, like we really probably don't need to be anonymous. It's that safe blanket of
it's just nice to have that safety.
There is that aspect.
And then it encourages, if we have other people that are active duty that want to be on the show, they can feel safe and feel like they can say whatever they want to say and not have to worry about. Yeah. We have that buffer.
Exactly.
So, and the guy who's just talking was Hermes Auslander. I'm interested. I don't think I ever asked or have run across the answer to this right now, but talk about the origin of the name that you use for the Scuttlebutt podcast.
Oh, well, the Scuttlebutt is it's another. Yeah, it's another way to say gossip, and it starts like the history of it is at the water hole, the watering fountain on like old ships. That's where everybody would gather around, similar to like that old corporate
the water cooler.
Water cooler. The water cooler gossip. And so you'd gather around there. That was your drink or your rations for the day. And you obviously what's going on below deck, what's going on above deck, what's going on the flight deck, what's going on in the captain's quarters. And then the tea would sort of spread that way. And that's where the term scuttlebutt kind of got mixed in with both gossip and what it actually the function is of the water hole. And so we thought, us being, let's just say alcohol enthusiasts figured we're all gonna get around the whiskey hole or the vodka hole or exactly there, yeah. And so if we're gonna wet our whistle a little bit, might as well spill some tea about what's going on in each other's lives and have that excuse to stay connected with each other and hopefully connect with other people.
Half of why we do this is just so we can hang out a couple times a week.
Yeah, I told my wife that the other day too.
I think it's a perfect excuse for a podcast is to be in contact with people. So one of the things that I really love is that this gives me an opportunity, an excuse to reach out to people that I really like and maybe have listened to for a long time or read, and be like, hey, I have a podcast. I can help you get your name out there, or whatever it might be, or you have a new book, et cetera, et cetera. And it's so cool to gain access to people that you otherwise really would have no reason to. So that's another reason I like it. But I've met people like you. Chris Talon is a good friend of mine. He was one of the early podcasts that I guested on, Creative Ops. He's been a roving co-host with me for a while now. And those opportunities to make friends, it's really shocking. I think if you're not in the world where you're actively podcasting, you don't realize it. Let me say this, and then Morpheus, you have to introduce yourself as well. But to me, I think that it is the like secular version of the church, if I'm being honest. Like, there are few excuses that are better to get together with people and have a fun time than to be like, I'm making a podcast, it's work. Get off my ass.
It's legitimate.
Yeah, I gotta drink a 12-pack while I do it. That's part of the show.
Damn straight.
We all have to have themes to set us apart. The internet's big. We gotta set us apart.
Yeah, we're the alcohol group. That's what we do. We drink half a bottle of whiskey by ourselves.
Or each at noon.
We just to our wives.
Yeah.
But we have to buy this bottle for work.
It's work.
I bought a bottle today.
I did too.
I was like, I got myself a little treat.
We could tax write that off, right?
Could we?
I don't know. I'm going to try.
You may actually be able to write booze off tax if you're consuming them during
that
podcasts.
That would be quite,
especially now that we're reviewing it too.
Yeah, it's a consumable product. It's a consumable supply, rather, right? It's like part of overhead,
I'm going to let you try that first, and then you can let me know how it goes. And if it works out and you don't get audited, then what are they going to audit us? We don't have enough money for that. They don't care enough.
Yeah.
They're like, you want to write off $100 in whiskey? Fine. We don't care. Poor people.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
The first step to tax write-offs is making enough to have to file taxes.
That's true. Until you're not doing a 1040 easy, it really doesn't matter.
First world problems, I guess, guys, or podcast problems, guys.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you, though, Jody. It has been one of the blessings that I don't know that I fully anticipated when we started up the show, is just getting to meet awesome people. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
the podcast community is amazing.
It's both really cool,
hosts and guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Morpheus, you didn't introduce your chaos yet. I mean, you are doing the chaos, but you're not introducing it formally.
I am Morpheus. I am here to do a podcast. I have a podcast. That is it. That is me. This is I.
Typical in perfect Morpheus fashion.
If you want to know the meaning behind the name, there isn't one.
That's cool. Okay, so you're not going like the Matrix Morpheus necessarily.
Okay, that actually sounds cool. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Or the dream,
right after I decided
from Greek mythology.
There's that too. Right after I decided on Morpheus and we put it on the episode, Morbius came out, and I was like, oh, that'd have been so much cooler. Damn it.
No, it wouldn't.
Your catchphrase could have been that it's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time.
I remember that distinctively because I went through 3 or 4 different names in the beginning trying to find one that stuck. And right after I was like, okay, it's Morpheus. That's what we're doing now. It's Morpheus. And then Morbius came out, and I was like, oh man, that'd have been cool. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of Morbius like a vampire?
Honestly, welcome to the club of creatives, dude, where every other day when you finally think you have an original idea, something else comes out to remind you, nope, nice try. It's been thought of before.
Yeah.
But I do the dream god. That's kind of neat. I am kind of like a weird character you'd see in a lucid dream.
The Sandman.
Yeah, exactly.
I could do that. Could you see that? Could you see me being in people's dreams?
It would be quite the scary dream.
Skedaddle, skadoodle, your dick is now a noodle. Go home, skahale, you're going to jail.
We apologize.
This is coming from
Jody.
somewhere. I was about to say, is this like literally just pouring out of your head right now, or do you have a script that you keep separate sometimes for moments like these?
No, this is true.
No script. I'm just staring at the wall right now.
This is straight shot from the hip. That is literally his catchphrase in our trailer intro. Is like he shoots from the hip, and he's got a lot of opinions. He's gonna share
that a lot in life. That's not just on the show. Like that's how I live my life. I shoot from the hip. I don't prepare very much for things.
Wild card.
It's been working out for me so far.
Yeah,
I'm relatively successful for a person my age.
I've been talking a lot lately about like my personality is ready, fire, aim. So I just like dive into something when I think that it's a good idea, and a lot of times that creates a little bit of chaos with it. But when like you just said, Morpheus, there's this moment where you're like, hey, this is working. I guess I don't care if it looks stupid. It's effective. So I've kind of leaned into it a little bit more, and I'm like, I'm not going to plan. If I like the idea, I'm going to just try it immediately without any more thinking.
Even like my work, I'll be like asked to like do a presentation where there's got PowerPoint already read or made, and they're like, do you want to review it? I'm like, nah, figure it out. It'll be fine.
I envy you guys for being able to be that flexible. I mean, I think in certain situations I can be flexible, but I would not say that's my baseline personality. I'm so neurotic when it comes to details. It's unreal.
Once you realize that none of this really matters.
I realized that a long time ago. I realized that a long time ago, guys. I think that's what put me down this path of like, well, what detail can I focus on and like control, and what's the smallest portion that I have an impact on, or biggest one.
I do think that's like part of the stem of my chaotic personality as far as like not preparing and shooting from the hip, though, is like I did have that realization when it comes to work specifically of like nothing I'm doing right now really has an impact on anything. If I did this or didn't do this, it really doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna wing it.
You can look at that both sides, though. You can make something matter, or you can make it not matter in your head.
Well, I think when you can do something well while like it's something that doesn't matter, like it inspires people more. I don't know. Like I've been told that people like my style of like leadership and stuff a lot because of that. Like I just don't take anything like that seriously.
Maybe they're willing to be more. The morale is there to be willing to follow you, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Easy.
Like I don't take anything. I don't over like complicate things. I don't make things too serious. I don't put like dumb minute details over like people and their life.
Mm-hmm. Which can again make a huge difference when we're talking about morale. From personal experience, that can make a big difference.
A big thing is like
a
big thing in my opinion of as far as like just like the leadership aspect goes about like commanding respect, right? I see a lot of people like at morning musters when they first get put into that LPO or ALPO position, and they go to morning muster and they're like, "Hey everyone, I'm in charge now.
Quiet down."
If you need anything, you talk to me. This is how it's going to be from now on. We're going to do things this way. And part of that, I think that like commanding respect thing like that a lot of the times comes from insecurity. Feeling you need to do that kind of thing.
Talk about that in terms of, because I think there's two different styles. There's Jocko Willink. I have to imagine you guys are familiar with Jocko because he's
absolutely
so military. And I love Jocko, but he is somewhat that guy you're talking about where he gets loud, he gets in your face, and he's like, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning and I'm doing 943 push-ups consecutively before my ice bath. And if you want to live a life that's worthwhile, you're going to do it too.
Yeah, fuck that.
I mean, I don't know about fuck that because I do love Jocko.
Me too. I love Jocko
and Goggins and Haynes. But I agree that there's different styles, and Jocko, the authenticity comes through, and I think what Morpheus is talking about is the insecurity part is masked with inauthenticity that people pick up on. And whereas Jocko, it's not because he's coming from a place of insecurity. He's leading by example, and he's like, this is why I am here. This is what has worked for me. Come follow me. And that's like one of those leaders where you're like, fuck yeah, you're going up that mountain. I want to chase you up that mountain. Whereas there's other leaders, like you're talking about Morpheus, where it's like, I'm in a leadership role. I want to be a good leader, but I'm not quite sure how to be a good leader. I haven't been a leader before. What is the leader that I've seen as quote unquote a good leader up to this point? And therefore you're going to kind of like, fake it till you make it, or you're going to emulate that kind of a leader and hopefully get to the leadership, summit that you're looking to be at. But, and it comes off sometimes unauthentic.
Yeah, because I've had plenty of times where I've had to be stern with people, and I do. Like I am, like I don't like being stern with people, but like I've had to be stern with people plenty of times, and I can, and I do it, and it's done. And like I had one person specifically that was like, I really appreciated the way you did that. Like you came in, you told me I was fucked up, you told me why I was fucked up, and you were like, all right, don't do it again. Like, and then it was over. Like that was it. Done. Like the done deal. You know.
I think that's really powerful because it does speak to your comfort in the role that you have in leadership. Because I think that like I'm considering myself and the way that even as a father, probably the area I need to work on the most is when I can't figure out why my kid's being a jackass. Instead of like taking time to understand the situation, I try to control it. I try to immediately shut down whatever disrespect or defiance is going on. And every time I do it, I literally am in the middle of being a jackass right back to him to make sure that he listens and knows I'm the boss and I'm the dad. Yeah, I think I do psychological damage to him when I behave that way. And I hate watching myself do it because I know that I can do better than this. But it's like there really is a deep level of insecurity sometimes. A, that my son is really actually so much smarter and more capable than I am, and that he's just coming into his own. But B, that like if there's anybody in this world who's just going to give me a free pass to be like, hey, you're a dude and I love you, it should be my son. But that's not actually how it works. There's so much involved there that's not, it's like it is blurring the lines of work or anything, but it's my struggles as a father all come from insecurity of believing that I'm not actually capable of doing it well.
Jody, I mean, that's
the
a
first thing
huge.
that I think we're probably going to say the same thing, but that is a crazy amount of insight that you're showing, first of all. And I want to make sure that you know that most people don't think that far down the road. So even the fact that you're taking it that far and considering those things puts you well ahead of the game as far as most dads that I've seen. I would say myself included.
That's why I was going to bring it up too, Theron. Is like, you guys being the dads. That's why I don't want to be and haven't decided to be a parent, is because it's like
my dogs and my kids.
That just sounds fucking unreal level of commitment, responsibility, all of the above, and like you said, Jody, insecurity. Like, to your point of self-awareness, like you're aware of your insecurities. I don't even know if I, outside of a DMT trip, want to examine my inner psyche to such a level like that. Whereas you and Theron have taken the plunge and are doing God's work of, carrying on the population. So at the end of the day, that's what I was going to turn it over to Theron, like reverse the question to Theron. It's like, are you as insightful or trying to be as insightful? I mean, in terms of age difference, obviously between your two sons, probably there are different issues or different problems coming up, but like, are you ready for all of that too, Theron? Did you plan and
just no is the answer. Like, and that's kind of what I was saying, is that even from my own perspective, like I strive to want to show that much insight. Like, it's definitely something that I will continue thinking about more, because I'm not hitting a lot of those milestones yet. My son's just turning 9 months here in a couple days,
amazing.
so I'm not dealing with any of like the back talker. I mean, he still kind of is a jackass sometimes, but he doesn't know it yet, so I can't get that mad.
Yeah. So you're even ahead of me there though, because even at 9 months, like I remember having kind of a blow up, maybe not 9 months. It's pretty darn close. Like he was able to sit in one of the bumbos. I don't, for people who don't have kids yet, it's just like the little foam thing that you can force them to sit up in a bumbo. And so we're eating like Gerber something, and he like starts spitting it out, and instead of being like he's a baby, he doesn't want to eat anymore, I'm like, it's food time right now, and I'm trying to like get him to eat, and I am just like enraged that he won't do this simple task that he needs to live.
Everyone fucking eats, dude.
You have to eat. And that's one of those times where I just looked at myself and I was like, God damn, dude, calm the fuck down. Just calm down.
Oh shit! Dude, I'm right there with you. My son, he's actually sick right now. This is the second time, and so he's got this ridiculous fever. He won't sleep at night. Like, he's tired. It will put him down, and he'll freak out. And I literally was thinking the same. I was like, just sleep. Like, why won't you just lay down?
How do you expect to get better if you can't sleep?
Why? Yeah, exactly. Why are you arguing with me? I'm the dad. I know what you need. And then it's like, oh wait, it's a baby. Hold on.
How do you guys
and then
toe
he threw
that?
up everywhere this morning. That was fun. I didn't deal with it
God.
well, I'll tell you that.
Well, how do you toe like you're saying, Jody, how do you toe that like gray line between like work, parent, friend, father? Like, how does that hold? Do you base some of it off of your own father, and like maybe draw from that as either what to do or not to do? Like, how do you guys toe that line? Because again, it's like unfathomable to me. I can't even imagine how my parents did it, let alone how I would ever even approach the question.
What I can say is that I really don't think that I did as well as I wish I would have or am doing necessarily. I unfortunately don't have a dad who is super involved. I have some good memories, and so like randomly a good memory with my dad will come up, and I'll tell my wife when we're out doing errands or walking or something like that. But a lot of the stuff with my dad was that like he had a lot of vitriol and hate for my mom, and so they got divorced real early in my life and used us kids sort of as pawns against each other a little bit.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a good lesson, unfortunately. But my grandfather, my dad's dad, was a great man in my life and very much of a father figure. And the one thing that I thought, well, okay, two things that he did that I have tried to emulate with my kids whenever possible is one, he was open to curiosity. So I remember I was living with him as a 20-year-old. So I was too old to be living with parents, but I needed a place to crash. It kind of effed up my life. And so I'm living there. And one night we were playing a game called Per Quacky. If you don't know it, don't worry about it. But I asked in between rounds, like, do you believe in aliens? And he told me a whole story about how he thinks he maybe had an alien encounter. And this is a guy who, for all of his 65 years at that point, had been going to a Baptist church. And was like very devout, read his Bible every morning, did devotions. And so the idea that he entertained and believed in aliens and had a conversation with me about it and didn't be like, well, God says there are no aliens, so shut up, was like huge. And so I try to entertain my kids' curiosity because I think that something happens to soften the relationship and build bonds. And then the other big thing is when I have those moments, like I was talking about with the Bumbo, where I'm yelling at an infant, or belittling my 10-year-old because he's talking back to me and not like actually figuring out how to do this better, I apologize, because that's the one thing that my grandfather did do, is he would apologize when he did something that he felt was wrong, and that I know for sure that my parents never did was apologize for anything. Like to this day, if I have to interact with my dad and something goes wrong, like he'll the closest he'll get is I'm sorry you feel that way, and it's like the most destructive phrase in the English language, in my opinion. I'm sorry you feel that way tells you that you're defective for not feeling the correct way. So it's like the opposite of an apology. It's a volley. So I'll get off my soapbox, but those are the two things from parenting land that I stole, either as like I'm not going to do it that way, or I want to do it that way.
I love when I bring up weird, slightly traumatic things from my childhood with my parents, and they have their strategy is just deny that ever happened.
That never happened.
Deny and gaslight that these pivotal moments in my memory just never happened, and I made it up.
Yeah,
there was like
it up though, Morpheus.
I brought up one time. This wasn't even like a bad one, but this guy brought up one time that like, oh yeah, it was one of those days like when I was like 16, 17 that you like left me at home alone overnight. My mom was just like, I never did that. And I was like, yes, you did. She's like, I never left you home overnight. I was like, I didn't say this, but I'm like, I lost my virginity on one of those nights. I had parties here and you weren't here. Like, I know
I'm pretty aware.
I don't know how I could have made this up or how quiet you were hiding out at.
Right, exactly. It's like either you weren't here or you were like not paying attention at all, which could be arguably worse.
I have some pretty core memories of things happening in this house that you were not present for overnight.
I love that. That's
defining moments in my childhood.
Yeah.
That's a big one with like not boomer. What's the cutoff between Gen X and Boomer? Is it like 1960?
The silent generation.
Because is it 60? Because I always call my parents Boomers just because everybody calls me. No,
what do you mean? I think like right after 60, because I know my dad is a Boomer, but my mom isn't.
Okay,
let me see. I'm googling generations.
That's a good idea, because I've always called my parents Boomers as well, but. So I think they're the ones who are born after World War II ended, and then
pre-Vietnam.
Boomers are 1955 to 1964.
Okay. So then they are boomers.
65 to 80 is Gen X.
Okay, so they are boomers.
81 to 96 is millennials. 97 to 12 is Gen Z. And then 12 and up is something new that hasn't been defined yet.
Isn't it alpha? Doesn't it start over?
I think that's because I looked it up because I was like, what generation is my kid going to be? And yeah, I think it's alpha. I think we just go to the Greek alphabet now.
Yeah, we just start over AB all the way to Z again in the next. Well,
proud millennial right here.
The whole reason I brought it up is because, everybody calls me a boomer, even though I'm not. And the sentiment of that generation is deny. It's like, nope, that's not at all how I remember it. We had a white picket fence. We lived in a white house. We had a perfect neighborhood. I was like,
we had a nice white neighborhood.
Really?
In a nice white state in a white country.
Yeah, exactly.
Before all these colored people showed up.
That's when America was great.
Yeah, milkshakes and racism is exactly the boomer mentality that I've...
The only time we saw colored people was when they were doing service jobs.
Well, but God, Jesus, Morpheus. On both sides of the house, though, it's because like my mom is more of has a minority background. She's Hispanic, and then my father is more of the Anglo-European, as white as paste comes, and then
they both Anglo-European.
They both say the same thing though. At the end of the day,
Anglo-Saxon.
I don't know. Well, what's Scottish and English and Irish? Like, what is a mixed bag of UK?
Certainly not Gaelic.
No,
Gaelic would be French.
I don't know. Anyways, it's just funny to see like the trends of parenting and seeing how some of those are getting changed and broken, and maybe not even for the better. Because like one thing that I noticed as well, and I'm curious, like Theron, I don't think you'll have this problem because like I've known you my whole life. I know what your personality type is when it comes to a situation. No, it's just like you see a lot of those like helicopter moms, and I don't know if like if Aurora has to like mitigate that, or if she's on that train or not, or if any other moms listening out there end up coming back the other way. But like you see a lot of those, like my sister especially had that with her first kid, right? And then she sort of tapered off, and now she has twins as her third and fourth kid. And the difference in parenting style, just with her, let alone against her versus her mom versus our mom kind of a thing, it's just like, it's so stark, it's so apparent. And then the outcome of those kids is so apparent and so stark. It's fascinating again from like, a third party.
After the first one, you learn that they bounce pretty good.
They're pretty resilient.
You're not as worried about it.
You notice people don't hit their kids very much anymore.
That's what's wrong with America.
Maybe that's the
problem. That's the whole problem.
That's the problem.
I was hit pretty lot.
I was gonna say I used to get hit.
Yep.
Kind of on that on that note, Hermes, of like the helicopter parent, I think because like a lot of our parents were so hovery, you're seeing like a hard push the other way. What my wife lovingly refers to as free range parenting.
Well, you had like, you had like the 80s.
I think it's almost worse because basically it's like you just show up with your kid and then they just do whatever it is that they want.
I think
like I know people who feed their kids by like, it's like grazing. It looks like they're feeding animals at a petting zoo.
Well, you had like the
wander by for a chicken nugget every once in a while.
You had the absent parents of the 80s, which bred helicopter parents, and now it's breeding absent parents again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a cycle.
Exactly, right? That's why we're back down to alpha, again, it's the whole question why I say it's same thing with like voting and stuff, why I've abstained for so long and commonly praise or propagate the notion of abstinence, not in sex but in most things in life.
Definitely not in sex.
Is this
or alcohol consumption or
or
recreational drug use or,
I just Uncle Sam doesn't even know about that.
Maybe some gluttony.
Is abstain from these situations and conversations.
Just abstain from abstinence, honestly.
Really, I only abstain from that one thing in life.
Is as I was saying, is the fact that it's so crazy to think that that's like something you have to answer yourself. Like you, Jody and Theron have to answer that. Whether you do the right thing, the wrong thing, you're probably going to do both. It's going to be a mix, a bag, but it's like, how wild that you have to answer that question, and you have to be aware and think of that of like, how am I parenting, or am I being a good parent? And whether it's a helicopter versus an absent parent, and it's like one, there's pros and cons of both probably. And it's
can we get like an in-between? Can we get like an LCAC parent?
Yeah, exactly.
Like one of those hovercraft that goes in the water that the Marines use, an LCAC.
That's where those leashes come in, because then you just leash your kid to you, and you don't have to pay attention to them, but they're like still in the orbit.
LCAC parenting.
We actually just so this is has nothing to do with book marketing, which I'm afraid probably most of the show will not. But we just got these things, and I should be quiet in case my kids are nearby. But they're like I can't remember what they're called. Something. No, yeah. I wish different direction there. But they're
I almost just spit water everywhere.
Smart tags or something like that. And basically, you put it on your kid. Unfortunately, you can't insert it, like you can't chip it like you could chip a dog. But they are these little tags. Yeah, these little tags.
It's like a bracelet or something.
Yeah, you wear it around, and then I can look at my phone and know where you're at. But basically,
we could put a battery on that.
Yeah,
that would exude a small electrical charge.
Exactly. Yes. When I know you're doing something that you shouldn't be, or I just tell that you're at the bar as a 13-year-old. Yeah.
Jody, just mute Morpheus if he ever starts to bring in like war crimes that he's committed at any time. Like, don't let him incriminate himself like this. Just mute him at any point in time.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I'm doing it for your own good, Morpheus.
You guys actually only got me for about another 15. So
interject all the chaos you can.
Yeah.
Remember that if you're going to say a war crime, just finish by saying in Minecraft, and then it's not actually a crime and you can't get in trouble.
When I was playing Mountain Blade the other day.
Sims. It was all Sims.
I genocided a race of people in that game I was playing.
So you're air tagging your kid though, Jody?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, air tags. So we got those air tags, but it's because I'm not willing to get an 8-year-old a phone. I'm not willing to get an 11-year-old a phone. That's just kind of my stance. So like I got my first phone when I was a freshman in high school, and that kind of makes sense to me. I was starting to drive, have some of that like adult responsibility. But before that, I don't need you attached to a phone everywhere you go. And I look at some of my nephews and nieces, and I just think like, that's not the life I want for my kids. We actually did a whole year of their life with no TV in the house. And that was a cool experience for all of us. And it was challenging at times because you're like, how do I fill up these like cold, dark nights in the Midwest or something like that? But
that sounds awful.
Yeah, right.
No, it doesn't. Board games and card games.
And we did a lot of that stuff. And so it was really cool. And then we agreed that like, let's bring the TV back in. And now we measure it. We have like time for them when they do it. And they can't play more than an hour on the weekend and 30 minutes during the week. So they're getting their Minecraft, they're getting their Mario Kart and like experiencing that, but it's not ruling their life. But I love that the AirTag, I can basically be like, hey, now my wife is not so scared to send them all the way across town. They can literally get on their bike and go wherever they want, which is how I grew up without an AirTag. But if that's what I needed to get that in between place of like, now we're both comfortable with this, then go live and have a fun time. So I sort of like that.
How old are they when you remove the microchip?
Exactly. Ideally,
that's the neat thing. You don't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you always know. I if I'm going to be honest, ideally at age 18, I want there to be a pretty clean cut where you're no longer like a kid. You're my son. I think that's, and the reason I think of the difference is because I'm no longer going to judge the value of your behavior. I've hopefully raised you for 18 years in such a way that if you make mistakes, you know how to self-correct. If I haven't done that, then in some ways I've failed. And I know that like it took me a lot longer. Like I said, I was living with my grandparents when I was 20. So if my kids are there, then that's on me. But that's in my mind when I take the chip out and say like, hey, go sow your wild oats.
Is
Hopefully
there
not too many of them?
Do you think there's a point that they could get to that prior to 18?
Probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, and certainly, yes.
Because like you're saying, your 10-year-old was, he's smart, he's aware, he's thinking a lot of ways.
How's he going to be when he's 16 or 17?
Well, that's what I had that problem growing up where I was, not to say I was so intelligent, but it's like I certainly outgrew a lot of the things that my parents were fundamentally about. Even to this day, it's one of those things where we're just not going to talk about that because it's going to bring up a fight kind of a thing. I mean, similar to Morpheus and religion, right? It's like if you age out or you decide that you're not going to be a part of that community, Morpheus, it's friction is involved with all of that, right?
It's still brought up on a regular basis.
So I was like, how do you approach, how would you, and could you approach that with your kid, Jody, where it's like, maybe he's, maybe new information comes out, because obviously everything's changing, science changes every day, kind of a thing. Maybe tomorrow, 2+2 isn't 4, kind of a thing, where something that you have a foundation in and it is part of you, turns out that he's like, no, that's not me, Dad. And
I mean,
maybe right, maybe wrong, I don't know, but.
Well, under any other circumstances, I would never have the conversation quite like I'm prepared to have it right now. But one of them, and I'll protect his anonymity, I think might possibly be gay. I've seen signs. I have a mom who's gay. My sister is gay. I've been around it my whole life and seen it. And I see the signs. I see some of that like latent anger that suggests to me that might be going on. And so I've already started to prepare myself. One, I don't see any problem with it. I want to be really clear about that.
You're not going to like send him to one of them camps.
Yes, have him. Yes, exactly. And so like in
our
a
church
lot of ways,
has got one of those.
We do. I know it's awful. I don't that's a part I don't even want to think about, because I'm just like, it's unbelievable.
I found out there is one of those within a half an hour of where I live.
Really?
That Lord. Does not surprise me in the slightest.
I regularly just consider, like, what if I just went and burned it down in Minecraft?
In Minecraft.
What if I just went and like cut a hole in the fence and was like, come on, little gay kids.
Exactly.
You're free.
The underground Gale Road.
You're free.
Go. What is happening? Jody was giving us a serious insight on a
Go be
conversation.
sharp dressers and good designers.
He's turned it into the under Gale Railroad.
Pulling myself.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Right,
I know, right? I gotta mute myself after that. Under Gale Railroad. That was amazing.
Great. That was great.
That was amazing. There.
Yeah, that was.
Look at us there and just putting them up and knocking them down.
But looking at that, I think that seems totally fine to me. But I have had, and I'll admit, I've had a harder time with kind of like gender fluid things. So when you were asking Hermes, like, what if 2+2 is no longer 4? In my brain, all of my life, that's been one of those things that's kind of, it's always felt like a cutoff to me. And so when he's 18, if he decides that he wants to do whatever, I'm certainly going to just like show love and support. But there's also part of me that feels like I don't need to make space for that particular choice. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it, whether comedic or not comedic. But it's one of the hardest questions that I've had to consider is, what if I actually do end up having a relationship with one of my kids where they decide that like their gender is not what it appears to be or something. That's a really, really tough one for me.
Yeah, no, that's a huge topic out there that actually my immediate family, my youngest sister, and then my parents have a huge amount of friction behind. And so I've read a little bit about it. I don't want to say a lot, but 10 or so within a couple handfuls of books relating to this topic, out of
handful, 10 or so
curiosity. Well, no. I say maybe that's more than some is kind of my point, but certainly I don't want to say like, oh, I'm an expert. What I say here is what I profess is correct, because tomorrow, every day I'm like, well, maybe this, and then I always consider something else. I'm very fluid when it comes to my opinion, is all I'm saying. And
fluid, eh?
I know. I was like, if somebody doesn't say that right now.
I'm glad everybody's still tracking here. Okay, we're all on the same page. No, it's something that
trans issues are very serious in America.
But that's the thing. It's not necessarily just a quote unquote trans issue or a trans discussion or question,
or in America alone.
Oh, sure. A lot of the reading I've done, one like sentiment that I've found that is being like shared or attributed to this phenomenon with specifically Gen Z that we just broke down, like the age group, right? Is this foundation being in the digital world, and the digital world being the connected the way it is, and society being educated specifically in the States as it is, and that be maybe in the Western, I would say, not even just the States, the Western like community of the world. Europe is included in that, Australia, etc. A lot of these things are coming out as like this idea of social contagion. So to your point, Jody, of like, how do you approach the conversation of something saying 2+2 is no longer 4? It's like, is that if tomorrow black holes are not black, they're white or whatever, if it is proven without a shadow of a doubt, there's usually a progression up to this point. Whereas now in the social contagion era, we're seeing a lot of this where it's not a progression of things. It's a clear because these kids are born into it. Like they don't know any better. Similar to people born post 9/11. It's like you don't understand the progression of TSA or national security up to now. You only know TSA now. So this idea of social contagion is something that I've found super fascinating. And again, there's a lot of nuance behind it and a lot of gray area and a lot of discussion there. But the fascinating part that I found behind it is to this discussion here is like, as a parent, you have the foundation, you have the progression of a conversation, aka I don't know, transsexual or gay rights or whatever, right? Gay marriage in the States. You have this progression, and therefore you have maybe a different nuance of perspective, whether you're on one side of the fence or the other. If you have one of these camps out there and you're going to pray the gay away, that came from a series of decisions and community influences and a progression of opinion, whereas your kid only knows what he was born into, versus the other side of the fence, where if you are 100% for gay marriage, you see a progression of, well, there's states' rights and there's personal rights and there's inalienable rights, and there's probably a conversation to be had for, state and church and being separate outside of the institution of marriage or relationships as a whole, whether it's homosexual or heterosexual relationships, right? So there's this nuance that a lot of this social contagion doesn't take into account. And one thing that we're seeing now is a new conversation that doesn't have a whole lot of, progression up to this point, now being in the forefront, the spotlight, where, this gender fluidity, where it's like you want to, how do you support something that is pretty much a newer phenomenon? You can look at like, oh, there's an Indian tribe back in 1400 that had a cultural significance. Yes, but that is more on the lines of a shaman. You're not talking about transsexual here. You're talking about something, again, you don't have the nuance of understanding here. So it's like, how do you have a conversation with that in terms of a contagion or even a mind virus, as I've heard like some people describe it as? How do you combat that? How do you approach that? And again, as someone who's not a parent, I again have only been like, well, this person says that, and I read this, and that person says this, and I kind of maybe think it's somewhere around here. And like I was talking to my parents about it, because my youngest sister is going through a lot of this social contagion phenomenon, not necessarily. So it started with like pansexual, and now it's and then it became gender fluidity, and then it became dissociative identity disorder, and then it became, and there's some other like aspects to the story there. But long story short is, now there's a frayed relationship. They're not speaking to us, kind of a thing, because like you said, we kind of have a cutoff. Do we have to make a space for someone who is maybe falling into this social contagion aspect? And again, you fit the demographic. You probably, again, I can't be in your head, but if you don't talk to me, kind of a thing.
This is why we call you a boomer, by the way, Hermes.
Because I read?
It's because of what you're reading. Not that I disagree with you entirely, but first of all, the phrase mind virus is just wild.
Like I said, some people are calling
any
it
idea is a mind virus if you really want to go there. Like,
infectious,
what I agree with you about is that the digital era is allowing these ideas to spread much more quickly than they would have before, and they allow the acceptance of those ideas to become a lot more evident than they were before. I also want to point out that there's just a pretty big difference between orientation and dissociative identity disorder. Like only one of those is in the DSM.
Yes.
So I love that you just quoted the DSM.
Whatever. Yeah, my wife's a social worker, so I hear about it a lot.
I love listening to your thought process.
But academia is not sheltered from social contagions either. And I don't mean social contagion. And again, people have labeled one mind virus. Somebody will say mind virus. Somebody will say social contagion. Somebody will say
like the mind flayer from Stranger Things.
There's a societal trend. There's a lot of ways to describe it. The only thing I care about is data, right? And so if you see an uptick of
No, I like, and I totally agree with you. And I agree that there's a certain subset of people that they're confused. I'll say that. And they're trying to figure out what exactly
I was confused. We're all
where
confused.
They belong. Okay. And maybe
guys,
I gotta also know.
This is great, but I have to jump ship here. I gotta
Morpheus,
go.
it's been
Christmas
great.
shopping.
Yes, thank you,
Go get that
Morpheus.
white tree that.
Oh, I'm going.
Yeah.
All right. It's been great, Jody. Thank you for having me
Yes,
so much.
thank you, Morpheus.
Guys, good to talk to you like always.
Always,
Hey,
Love
man.
y'all.
always fun.
Love y'all. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye, buddy. But then like right now we're just talking specifically about the Western side, like you pointed out. If you look at kind of the history of like some of the Eastern cultures, there is a lot of like historically a lot of what you're talking about. And what you see is that for them, like sexuality and gender is kind of like much more intrinsically like entwined. That's kind of like just something I think that everyone has heard of in pop culture at some point, like the Thai lady boy. And like part of the reason culturally that happens is just because it's in that society less frowned upon to change your gender than it is to be gay. So like for someone who like thinks that they might have homosexual tendencies, it might be easier for them in society to just become a woman.
Well, that's the same in Middle Eastern countries as well. As again, it's extremely frowned upon to be gay. Whereas if you transition, you're now female. It's not frowned upon.
And so like for us, we have, like you pointed out, this kind of long historical graduation of homosexuality being more and more accepted and being treated equally and being allowed to marry and stuff, where like in other parts of the world, it's very definitely the exact opposite. Now, I don't know if like the mind virus just finally made its way through the Chinese firewall, but
hopefully. Well, again,
I was
no, go ahead.
So the newest book that I'm working on, it's only an outline right now, but there's actually a character. So there's a character who has a kind of schizophrenia, but it turns out that it's not actually schizophrenia. It's real voices that are actually speaking to her, that are the spirits of dead people that have latched onto her. And so in the next book that I'm outlining, one of those spirits ends up attaching to one of my other main characters and having conversation, and very much in casual conversation. It comes out that in life, this person was a male, but that their spirit was female. And so like now you identify as a female, you were a male in life. And I don't know that I'm not seriously approaching this question like that, this specific question, but in some sense, that was the first thing that got me to start opening up to being like, okay, I think I could understand where there is like a core part of you that identifies in a way that you do not present physically, because you know, in the most serious way, my wife and I are flip-flopped in terms of what people expect based on gender stereotypes. So I navigate by landmarks. I am deeply emotional. I want to have long conversations. I love to cuddle. These are all true things that are stereotypical female. My wife, we went honeymooned in New York, and she understood the subway system from like the instant we touched the ground. She was like navigator A++, and she doesn't want to have long conversations. She doesn't like, she wants to fix shit. When I'm upset, she wants to fix it. And I'm like, I just need you to hear me right now. And so those are all those stereotypes that we grew up with, and we are literally flip-flop. She has like a lot of the masculine stereotypes, and I have a lot of the feminine ones. But then the area where there's murk, or that I'm still just kind of working through it, is I would never in a billion years think of myself as being gendered other than male, because I do have like core masculine things as well, but that's how I identify. And I can't imagine myself into a different way of thinking, whether that's right or wrong. That for me is the current frontier where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's the idea of the social contagion that a lot of the conversation neglects, is we have social contagions that we accept as normal, whereas you're describing gender stereotypes, right? That doesn't mean that there isn't a spectrum there, or a graduation of gender, quote unquote, fluidity, where not everyone fits the stoic masculine male persona, and there is a graduation. Not even the most masculine of stoic male personas out there fit that perfect mold. Like you take, the quote unquote alpha of any gender, and put it up against all the other alphas. There's still a spectrum there between them. So it's like amongst all of the gender, there's a huge spectrum. So that's one part of the conversation that like I said, gets neglected a lot, is that social contagion that we already accept, again, in the Western cultures, what I'm speaking on from having experience with it. Like you were saying there, Theron, And the opposite is true for other, like Eastern cultures, where that's just, like the Middle East, that's just something that is accepted as you can't be gay. It's unacceptable. That is just something that is inherently, it's illegal. It's morally, whatever, it's all these things. And that's something that is accepted. So you kind of like base then your outlook from that point going forward. And it's again, it's fascinating to me as a third party, because luckily I don't have any horses in the game, but you two being uniquely you do. So it's, again, I always like spectating, but yeah, I don't know how it all fits. It's oftentimes, you guys ever feel like when you have conversations that are super stimulating and you love getting down into the gritty, then you find yourself at like the impasse point where it's like, whether it's abortion, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's transsexuality, it's like, all right, I got to the point of interest, and now I'm into the point where it's like, I'm not a woman, I'm not gay, I don't have a transsexual kid, I'm not so it's like, I don't know if I can go further, even emotionally or intellectually, further down the rabbit hole, it's like, but whereas somebody else who is invested certainly can go further, as far as right or wrong, as far as it could possibly ever go, infinitely.
For me, a big piece of what you're saying is like the idea of drinking deeply of any kind of conversation. I do get to a point where there's enough mental fatigue, because I've already brought up a lot of ideas that are not concrete in my mind, and when you have too much of that going on, then for me, I think that there's a diminishing return on carrying it on.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, is that part of like writing that helps you? I've noticed recently, as I write out a thought, like a topic or a thought, and then I start research a little bit more, and then I have slightly different thought, and then you sort of cement more of a foundation on that.
Yes. Yeah. Everything that I have for sure that's nonfiction has no timeline on it, because I will always write until the point of like mental exhaustion, when I can't quite figure my way through this next piece, and then I just set it down. And sometimes I forget forever that it's there. Other times I come back to it, and so those projects kind of stack and build as I'm able.
This is why my fucking book isn't done. Now I have a reason for it, Jody. It's because it's nonfiction. There it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
why it's not procrastination.
I can't finish it because it hasn't finished yet. Life is still happening.
Life is life.
So for the 5 listeners who are left that are like, wait, this is a book marketing show that doesn't talk about book marketing today. I do want to wrap in this, because I think that the question that we started with and that we've been talking about and we've returned to often is that there's not a right way to approach a problem. I think that it was Morpheus who said that he's kind of just like, whatever happens, he's going to go with it. And that leadership style that's, whatever, I'm just going to be super chill about it. I said, I'm ready, fire, aim. So, and then Hermes, you're very more structured, your approach. I don't know that we nailed you down there into one way or another, but I'm curious on the creative journey, or in the world of trying to get your product out there. I say product, I don't love any of these words. I don't like brand, yada, yada, but trying to think of like what we're trying to create, in so far as like a legacy while we're even alive, what people know us for. Doing it differently can rub people sometimes the wrong way. So you can have your jockos, and then you can have the opposite end of the spectrum. How have you dealt with that in terms of making something like the Scuttlebutt podcast, or any of the art that you're creating, the things that you're trying to do? Do you feel weighed down when you encounter someone who tells you you're doing it the wrong way, or you should do it a better way? Is that like part of your process?
Darren, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts for sure. Yeah. Honestly, we don't care like that. We never started doing this podcast for anyone else. We don't like, we really appreciate that we have an audience. So we'll put that out there. We love you guys, all of our Scutterbutters. Don't want to alienate you, but we've talked about it before, and we'll say again that none of you guys could ever show up for a single episode, and we'd still keep recording it. Because like Morpheus addressed earlier, really, we just do it because it's fun to hang out and talk. And so whenever people tell us about, oh, there's a better way to do this, or, some advice that generally is well-natured, I wouldn't say we ignore it. It goes under consideration. But at the end of the day, like, who's to tell you the best way to have fun with your friends?
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. That's for sure true.
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more, Theron. That I throw it to Theron again because he's like succinct with it. I could go on a fucking random tangent and rabbit hole of all of it, but that's exactly what it is about. And even even when you're talking about, because like Theron does a lot of the social media stuff, and so he's got that finger on the pulse, but he also has the ability to understand it. And that's one thing that I appreciate of each of our skills coming into creating whatever this is. It's like we're that tripod that props up whatever this, very vague, quote unquote, italicized this is, because it's not anything without the three of us, kind of. It's not what it is without us. So if somebody comes in and says, well, have you considered this, like you said there, and like it's considered as, could we do better and would it be more fun? Like when Morpheus was like, look, I'm just not having fun, guys, we got to restructure, we got to do something. Immediately Theron and I both, like, even if we weren't registering that, it was in our subconscious. We're like, you're completely right, Morpheus. Let's restructure. Let's figure something else out. Let's do. And then we did, and it was more fun. And we're like, yes, we're back to that groove. I didn't want to lose the groove.
That was the core thing too, was that we're like, this is kind of not as fun as it used to be. And so I appreciate Morpheus pointing that out, because he was totally right. And man, it's fun again.
Exactly. It's always exactly. And that's the idea.
What was that moment for me and for other people who haven't been on the journey with you? When, like, what was happening that there was like the fun had drained out? What was that moment?
I think I was taking the helm straighter than it needed to go. I was scheduling a lot of guests, and I was just, I'm a very accepting person. Theron, we're all like very accepting of like, anybody want to talk? Let's hang out. Let's get to know you. I'm ready to get to know you. And indiscriminately doing that, you find that statistically speaking, there's a lot of authors out there, or there's a lot of musicians out there, or there's, and then so all of a sudden your podcast becomes, the book podcast, or the musician, highlight podcast, or or the other, we're basically podcasters talking to podcasters, and we're just podcasting back to each other, kind of a thing.
It's just promoting in an echo chamber.
And so once Morpheus was like, yeah, dude, it doesn't feel like we're at the pub getting to know a stranger, and he was a sailor and a French army man and was a Secret Service diver. Like, we're not getting to know cool people as much anymore. We're just nothing against like all the authors, or nothing against all the musicians.
Well, and that's we've had great guests. Like, there's nobody who I would go back and say we shouldn't have had this person on.
Exactly.
I really have appreciated all of our guests, but I think we were just kind of getting lost in the sauce there for a second.
A trend.
And we were going, well, this is a podcast, and podcasts are supposed to have guests, and so we got to have a guest every week, and we got to keep it going on, and that. Then our format kind of became talking about whatever it is that they're doing. And then it like a lot of the things that people were tuning in for, the actual personality of the show, was being set by the sideline in favor of doing it like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So just being self-aware of course correction, adjustment. And again, Morpheus being the chaotic contribution that he is to the show is like, hey guys, I need more this. I need some more fun. And when he said it, we all agreed and we did it. And it's been a noticeable shift where it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like, oh great, we have a guest that we got to record with on Saturday. No, it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to talk to this guy today. We're going to talk to that gal today. And it's holy crap. Like, I just scheduled one, and Theron and Morpheus both saw the email for like the description of the bio, and they're like, wow, this is going to be one hell of a ride. And I was like, if it's not, I'll be really surprised, because it sounds like it's going to be a hell of a ride. So keeping it fun. And then you said something, legacy. That's something that I've been going back and forth with. There was actually a shout out to Mike. It was a previous episode, the last episode we did. We lost Mike on Sunday after Thanksgiving. So, attended his funeral yesterday, and just really want to say, we miss you and everything like that. And the idea of legacy got brought up, obviously, in the forefront of my mind recently, more than even I was anticipating. And one thing I talked to the wife about is like, the idea of legacy and what we're after with legacy obviously is answered differently with everybody. But one thing that I noticed and want to continue for the idea of legacy is just people, the connections we make with people. Mike was, a Southern dude, made great food, was hilarious, an old soul, died maybe younger than he was supposed to. And I that quote of, you die once when you die, and then you die the second time when people stop speaking your name, kind of a thing, right? Where your memory kind of dies. And it's like, yeah, I just always want to like let people know that I did know Mike, and I hope that when I go, the same sentiment is like carried on. That's, if anything, I mean, you guys are parents. I feel like that's the legacy of parents. Like your kids carry on, like they tell people they know, yeah, my dad was cool, or my dad was shit, or, I had this memory, or I, wish I had that memory, kind of a thing. That's the legacy, where I think we're all after it, as long as like the people we make connections with continue those connections onward, kind of a thing.
There's something really crazy. I think a lot about this. There's a guy I enjoy listening to, Alex Hermosi, and he talks a lot about there's two sides to legacy. There is real legacy, and then there's the fallacy of legacy. And so he's like, for one, you don't know any authors that don't live in the United States. You don't know any podcasters that don't podcast in English. They could be like a massive big deal in France, and you don't even know they exist because they podcast in French. You know your grandparents, and you probably know of your great grandparents, but your children will not even know of your great grandparents. So typically, any legacy you have is about 3 generations long. And there's one sense in which you're like, wow, that's really depressing. I'm going to be completely forgotten in about 120 years. Unless I'm Bill Shakespeare, like that. That would be kind of the exception to the rules. There's a handful of people who have really shaped the world, and they get to have a much, much longer legacy. I want it. I want that. And I also want to be cognizant of, because this is foundational to where I'm at on my journey, is that I started out when you guys interviewed me way back when. I think I was Collaborate was the name of the podcast. I liked how cute and fun it was. And then somebody convinced me that I needed to be on a mission to, do something and have a reason to be a podcaster. So I changed it to the Reluctant Book Marketer. And I had such a similar journey to what it sounds like you guys did, where I was like, I hate these interviews. I do not like the people I'm talking to. I don't like the feeling of this show. I don't like the agenda. I just want to have some fun having some conversations, and generally try to pick out the pieces that are relevant to the journey that I'm on, because I know there are a lot of people on the same journey. And if they can find this show, then they'll get the value of the conversation plus maybe some marketing tips. And so I changed the name to TRBM. And for a very long time, my intro was say, what does TRBM stand for? And every week I changed that little snippet, the rascally bat, monkey and like whatever it might be, because I wanted to step away from that intentionality. I find sometimes when you get too drilled or focused in, even if that's the best way to monetize a show and make a bunch of money, it's not the best way to enjoy your life. And I think that with your podcast and mine, there's probably a point where you're going to just collect enough listeners that if you wish to monetize with a few ads or something like that, you could do that. You guys, I know, use Patreon. That's a fantastic way to monetize an audience as well, and letting them show appreciation to you. But these are things I think a lot about, because I am deeply ambitious. I cannot separate myself from that part of my identity. Is like, I want to put a dent in the universe, whether I will or not. It's a desire of mine.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Joey.
I think that's kind of the main thing the main reason we haven't gotten money really involved with the podcast so far, is that it lets us do it for fun. Like, we've all talked about how, like, oh yeah, dream the impossible dream. It'd be great to just have this be our day job, where we would just podcast and do this all the time. But on the other hand, like, it would take away some of that freedom to have fun, because when we're sitting down and we're having these meetings and we're going, oh, this does it, I don't want to talk to these guests anymore. It's like, yeah, but we have set up, we've got contracts, we've got there's money on the table. It makes it such a more complicated conversation. And like right now we can say that we don't sell out to anyone by being entirely funded by our listeners. We know that we are doing what they would want us to do, or else they're not going to keep giving us their money. And so that, like, it has allowed us a creative freedom that I don't think most podcasts get to have, because of that level of ambition that you're speaking to.
So Theron, on that note, I'm kind of curious, because I only have 3 paid subscribers through my Substack, which is also where I host my podcast. Big shout out to Substack for having free hosting for as many hours as you want. It's really cool. But I have 3 paid subscribers. I have not built a large paid thing. I don't ask for it. It's in my show notes if you want to, but you have to search for it. And my reasoning is almost the opposite of yours, which is I'm afraid of the people who like my stuff enough to pay for it, that like somehow I'm going to disappoint them. And so I've never tried to monetize them. Obviously I sell my books, and you have to buy my books in order to read them, or go to the library. But what are your thoughts there? Like, have you ever come up against that feeling before of like, oh, now I have these people who are like giving me money and I have to please them?
Well, and see, that I think is the nice thing about having it be supporters and people that you're listening
Mm,
to versus partnerships, because I would
yeah.
very much feel that way. And like we've gotten dangerously close to some partnerships in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
was what kind of spooked us off of it, is the fact that like there's going to be this obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only do we have to do just like whatever the basis of the agreement is, but then we have to present ourselves a certain way. Like, they want us to look and act like this. That's what works well for all of the rest of their clients. Where I kind of think of us as like, when you're walking through town square and there's like that dude with a guitar and a bucket, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, man, he's jamming. Let me go throw a fiver in there for him.
Oh yeah, I
Exactly.
like that.
It's
Exactly.
I don't think that guy starts jamming harder usually, or like, he's not like, hey, what song would you want to hear me play now since you
That's
gave
true.
me
I'm a
$5?
jukebox. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
he
That's true.
he gives you the nod and you enjoy the music and life goes on. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of how I think of our patrons, is that I
Mm,
really appreciate them for kicking in our bucket.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing it because they like what we're doing, not because they have some expectation.
yeah,
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a
that
great
I've
analogy. I
actually
really like that.
I've joked about that on like Twitch a lot, where you have these Twitch streamers where they get donations and then they'll read, oh, hey, thanks for the $10 from this person, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's right, here's $10, say my name, bitch.
Yeah.
That's so true. I
It's a
know it is.
it's a perfect way to say it too, Theron. And when you were describing like maybe becoming beholden to it, Jody, I had the thought of just the reason why anybody, as Theron is saying, is getting behind you is because they like you and they don't want you to change. So the fact that you would
Mm,
think, oh, maybe I should change, or maybe they want me to, no, they if they don't, if they do want you to change, they'll leave. They won't stick around. Like the ones who are
yeah,
here listening, the ones they found something in you, whatever it is, the intangible thing that is Jody, and that's
yeah.
it. And that's all you got to be. And that's, I mean, part of creating is finding that yourself and then
Mm.
sharing it with other people and hoping, that other people find it worthwhile as well. And so when they do, that's it. That's it. You've already done. You already won. That's all it
Mm.
is. The three that you
I would
have.
say,
Huh?
oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, I thought you were done.
No, the three you have, just spread the word to more people that might like Jody. That's it. That's all you got to
Yeah,
do. And if
yeah,
it's in your show notes, then maybe mention it a couple more times. Hey guys, I love connections. I love the three I got. I love more connections. Let's make friends.
yeah, yeah. I love that
Well,
point. I
and that's
mean,
what I was gonna say too. Just like as a piece of advice, we're talking about the marketing thing. You do have to market it. If we're going back to the analogy of like the performer with the bucket, if he doesn't have the bucket out, he's not going to make anywhere near as much money. Like, people are going to be way
right.
less likely. They're going to have to really like what he's doing to walk up and hand him money
Yeah.
face to
Mhm.
face. And so I think there's a difference between like panhandling and just letting people know it's there. Like, we
Mhm.
don't push our Patreon, but we
Mhm.
do let people know that it's out there, and we do make a point every episode of shouting out the people who are our patrons and making sure that they know that they're appreciated,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because it gives that kind of like back and forth, and it also does remind people that we have one,
Yeah.
because I've found the threshold of people who are willing to donate are a lot lower than the threshold of people who are willing to seek out a specific link.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I need to think about. I've been surprised. So I do, and then I'll start wrapping up with you guys. But I do a newsletter with anybody who's bought my books, so they're already shown to want to like read my work. And it's called 6 Point Saturday. I really shamelessly ripped it off from Tim Ferriss's 5 Bullet Friday. Um, and I wish I would have done like 4 Point Saturday, because that'd be a little less work. But what I do is I just like tell people about me. It's a space where I don't have to like provide anything, but I put links in there for products that I like sometimes. Like the other day, I was re-listening to Sufjan Stevens and loving his music again, and so I talked about that a little bit and put a link into there for people to listen to his stuff on YouTube. But one thing that has been noticeable to me is that for whatever reason, even though in that format I'm saying here's something you can get, here's something that you might like that I love, here are my books if you want to read them and haven't already bought them, I don't make sales on that. Like, it's really interesting, and I'm wondering if latent inside of me or hidden inside of me is the desire to just like squeeze money out of my audience, and if that holds me back at a level that I'm not even conscious of, because I know that I have unconscious biases, and that may be one of them.
I hear you there too. That's a question with art in general, right? It's like, am I like you said, am I squeezing this out of you, or am I trying to make myself worthy of it? Is this worth actually like supporting myself? And it's like, I mean, again, we all answer differently. Again, I think the bucket analogy is amazing, Theron. I couldn't have said it better, because that's 100% what we've done. It's like, and if you do enough good things, I've also used the analogy, the more hooks you cast, the more fish you catch, kind of a thing. It's like, I do podcasting, I do digital artwork, I do writing, I do, it's like you dip your toes in a little bit of everything, so long as you're passionate about it, kind of a thing.
Yes.
And what you're describing there is kind of what I get from you. It's not necessarily, am I squeezing every dime out of these guys? No, it's like, am I offering more to these guys? Am I passionate about offering these things? Is it fun for me to do these little, Substack or these news articles or these Instagram reels? Is it fun to do those every morning and every night? And it is. I enjoy those. I like the creative process. I like when I get something perfect and then I share it, and then I have 2, 3, 4 people start engaging with it really hardly, and it's like, oh yeah, this is, wow, I love what you said about this, or the music in this, or the editing on that. That's fun, that's great. And again, if I got 0 cents from that, that's still fun. And so as long as that's like what I drive myself with, if I can then monetize a little, I can get, then the bucket's there. That's it. That's my,
and especially, advice too. None of us here are buying like Lamborghinis or anything, so it's not
Speak for yourself. I love my Lambos. I have 3 of them.
Sorry, Jody.
Theron, I don't know if you know this, but no, I'm just kidding.
Right. Oh my God, how is it? I can't believe you went this long without bringing it up.
I know, right? My Challenger, I would have named that one immediately.
But I think like the important thing too is that for us, and I assume probably very similar for you as well, Jody, all the money goes right back into the creative endeavor. So it's not only like, I don't feel bad about squeezing an extra dime out of my, I guess, audience or fan base, whatever you want to call them, all of my loving supporters.
My friends, I love them.
Because that's just one more dime I can use to give them better content.
Yeah,
goes into a giveaway, goes into a live stream, goes into a whatever. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Gentlemen, this was so fun. I'm sad that we waited as long as we did to actually get it scheduled. You're invited to,
Jody. We didn't wait. It just is how life goes, man.
That's true. That's true. It was great, though. It was awesome to have you on the show. I'm excited to share you with people who listen. You can go back and find my interview on the Scuttlebutt podcast. I don't know what number it is, but I'll dig it out and link to it. And then for you fellas, it sounds like, Theron, you're the guy to ask. Like, where should people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, man. So really anywhere that anyone is trying to find and connect with and listen to the Scuttlebutt podcast, you're going to find us. We are on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify and Apple Music and every different podcast platform and social media landscape of garbage. And you can find us on all of those places at Scuttbutt Pod, all one word.
Awesome. All righty, gents. Thanks so much. Hermes, thank you a lot. Theron, thank you a ton. And we will be in touch.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you for listening to TRBM. The theme music was provided by the ever-talented Christopher Talon. And hey, if you liked what you heard, share this show with other readers, because what's the point of telling stories if nobody's listening?